Hey, it's Larry again. Want to go over other things besides the flat Earth. Kind of use this channel to do a bunch of different things on here, but this is one that's kind of on top of my list right now. One I've been thinking about the last couple of days. But I want to address the issue of our rights. You know, the rights that are laid out in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, just for a second. And I want to use something that's used quite often today about people who own guns. They say, well, you know, it's said that people should have the right to own a gun as long as they haven't been convicted of a felony or anything like committed any crime. So they should have the right to own a gun. So my question is if a person commits a crime, do they actually lose their right to self protection? You know, and so I'm just going to put this out, and you decide based on what I'm about to go through. I'm going to go through the 10 amendments to the Constitution that, you know, lay out our rights guaranteed supposedly by the Constitution. The First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievance. Now, what if I said this only applies if you haven't been convicted of a felony? If you've been convicted of any type of crime, then none of the First Amendment applies to you. You've lost that right. Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. We already know that one. We already know. Everybody says, oh, we have no problem with legal gun ownership. That's that's the deception to say that it's legal gun ownership. The Third Amendment, no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. Well, this one doesn't apply either if you've been convicted of any type of crime. Domestic violence. When a woman, you know, or a man files for divorce and there is a restraining order filed, you lose your right to own a weapon. You lose your right to not have soldiers quartered in your house. You lose your rights to free speech if you've had any of these things happen because you've been convicted of a crime by the state. As if the state is 100% on convicting people of crimes. They're 100% on convicting on crime, but they're not 100% convicting the guilty. I think they're convicting the innocent quite often. The Fourth Amendment, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, homes, paper, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. Doesn't apply if you've been convicted of a crime. None of this. You don't have any of these rights. You don't have the legal right to the First, Second, Third, or Fourth Amendment if you've been convicted of a crime. The Fifth Amendment, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in the actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject excuse me, for the same offense to be twice but put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. None of this applies if you've been convicted. If you're a legal person, legal, you haven't been convicted of any crimes, then you should this right, the Fifth Amendment should apply to you. But if you've been convicted of any crimes or you have a restraining order, domestic violence, something like that, this doesn't apply. You're not legally entitled to enjoy this right. Sixth Amendment. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and causes of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Doesn't apply if you've been convicted of a crime. Any type of crime, you're not legally entitled to the Sixth Amendment. Amendment 7. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of common law. Doesn't apply. Been convicted of a crime, you cannot legally enjoy this right. Amendment 8. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Doesn't apply if you've been convicted of a crime. Any type of crime you've been convicted of does not apply. The Ninth Amendment. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Doesn't apply. If you've been convicted of a crime, doesn't apply. You don't have any of these rights. I'm just going to go with the last one. The 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. None of this applies. None of this applies to you if you've been convicted of a crime. None of this. The mere fact that we allow the government, we're under this sense of, oh, we have this Constitution, this Bill of Rights, which none of this shit applies to any of us. None of it. None of this. You look at these Bill of Rights and see if you're actually enjoying any of them. You know, I heard Daniel Pratt say to look at this video on YouTube called Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. I would encourage you to go read that. Go listen to it, because it's like 3.5 hours long, but go and listen to it. Listen to the first 3 or 4 minutes and see if this doesn't catch your attention about what's going on. And when it talks about the Bill of Rights in there, if you listen to it, you're going to find out this is all a sham. These rights are not for you. And they've convinced Americans by telling them the Second Amendment only applies to people who are legal, can legally own a gun in this country. That's the lie. There is no legal right to self-protection. You have self-protection because you're born. If you go to Luke in the Bible, Luke 6, I think it's Luke 6:38, Jesus tells his disciples, hey, if you don't have a sword, you need to sell your cloak and go buy one. Now, why would Jesus tell his disciples, why would he tell people to go buy a sword if it's not the right of self-protection? The right of self-protection, everybody convicted of a crime or not, but they're going to use the bullshit. You know, I had a friend I talked to recently, and he was like, oh, I believe everybody should be able to own a gun as long as they're legally allowed to. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, murderers shouldn't be allowed to own a gun. I said, well, what if somebody is convicted of murder at 18 years old and they do 10 years in prison? What if they do that 10 years in prison, they get out and now they're 28 years old? And in prison, they actually went and educated themselves. They come out and they start their own business. Say they get married. Say they have a wife and, children. Say they have 2, 3, 4 boys. Now that father has been denied. Now he's paid his debt to society. He's done what he was supposed to society, what society required of him, and he paid his debt. And now he cannot have the right to protect his children from somebody. And they'll say, well, you're going to do all these other things. Well, how do you confront somebody? What's the best way to curtail or defend yourself against an attacker? That's to have superior weapons. superior weapons in this day and time are firearms, are guns. So this man who was convicted of when he was 18 years old, goes to prison, does his time, gets out, starts a business, gets married, has children, and now he's 48 years old, and he can't teach his son to hunt. He can't teach his son firearm safety. He can't even do that because he's been told he doesn't have the right to self-protection. Don't be fooled by this bullshit they're putting out. Your rights cannot be spelled out on a piece of paper. They can't be spelled out on a piece of paper. Your rights are yours, whatever they are. Now, if you choose to hurt somebody, then other people are going to stop you. If you choose to steal people, I mean, it's listed in the Ten Commandments. It's listed in the Ten Commandments. That's natural law right there. Natural law. Your rights cannot be spelled out on a piece of paper. It's natural law. Somebody tries to hurt somebody else, others will stop them. If they don't stop them in the process, others will come and stop them. This whole bullshit about legal right to own a gun, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Anyway, this is just something I've been thinking about the last few days, and I just thought if I could put it out and let people hear, you know, the 10 amendments to the Constitution that so many people in the patriot community seem to say we all have, and you don't have a one of them because you're not legal. You don't have the legal right to any of these so-called rights that are spelled out on a piece of paper. You don't have any of them because you're not legal. And they've got you they've got the American people to hold up the banner of, oh, a person only has the right to defend themselves if they're legal. That's it for now.